Morning. There's a lot of red and maroon. I wasn't sure if it was because it's Chinese New Year, right? It just happened, or it was because we're celebrating Santa Clara 49ers coming. And actually it's been a long time, right? So I remember those days a long time ago. When we were actually good. So now we're celebrating the fact that that we're better. So whether actually the Niners win or lose today, I'm just happy that we're just finally back. Okay, and it's a good time because sports fans out there, the Warriors are not doing good this year, Giants and all that stuff. So it's like at least we have another team, right? So at least we have someone to root for. In the meantime. Okay. Today, I have the privilege to be here. I'm just thankful, just thank you to the worship team to actually lead us in song. I've been tasked with today to speak on John 10 about the door and the Good Shepherd. So Jesus is talking about these things. There's many I am statements in John. So the fact that I get the door and the Good Shepherd is a privilege to me. So today we're going to be talking about trust, and we're going to follow along with the story of last week. So I came last week just so I can peek in and be like, let me just continue this story. I want to know and hear also about what's going on. I don't want to just speak on my own, but as a church, we are all journeying together. So the fact that we actually get to go through Scripture together and follow Jesus' journey. The context of how he's leading us is really important as well. So let me pray for us, and then we'll talk about trust today and who can you trust, and can you trust me? Can you trust yourself? All these aspects of trust. Father God, we're so thankful to be here. We're privileged. We ask that we ask that we come here with open hearts and open eyes, ears, everything to hear, to see. We ask that we don't leave unchanged, that you speak to us, and that if we hear your voice today, that we would respond, and that we would come and draw close to you as you have drawn close to us. So Lord, open your Scripture and your word to us, and may my words not be my own, and that my name maybe even can be forgotten, but that we hear your words, and we know that you're speaking to us today. Thank you so much. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. So I have a clip, okay? I have a clip. I don't want everything to be too heavy. I seem so serious on a Sunday. I'm not that kind of person. I didn't grow up in church, so I always thought church was really stodgy and strange, but I wanted to kind of see something that, some of you guys who have, stayed up too late, watched on YouTube, this is something that I found, and I thought it spoke to me in the wee hours of the night, okay?
Fall, and it'll be an exercise in building trust between one another. So Harrison, if you don't mind going first, step up here on this chair and close your eyes. All right, and then everybody fill in, and we're going to ask you to fall, and then they will catch you. So you have to trust us. I'm going to count to 3, just relax and fall, okay? 1, 2, 3. No!
All right. Let that stick in your mind, okay? You can watch that over and over again, okay? It's on the internet. I find I just watched like 10 or 20 times. Okay, so if you do that, I will not judge you, okay? We will be friends, okay? We can be friends. But today we talk about trust, and as we're following along with Jesus, I think sometimes we're thinking about trust, like this family intervention or whatever. But you may think about trust, like, maybe your trust has been broken or, been given or, received with many people in your lives. So your family, people, you're looking at leaders of our country, you're like, do we trust our leaders, right? You're looking at your teachers as you're in school, you're saying, can I trust this person and what they're saying to me? You're saying to yourself, can I trust myself? I've been wrong about many different things. And hopefully we're asking the question today, can we trust Jesus and what his words are telling us? Can I trust that he's leading me into different places where I can agree and I can actually relax with him and be with him? These are the questions that we're going to answer today. So, let me set the stage. John 9, we talked about, Pastor Josh was talking about kind of this blind guy who was healed, right? And he got brought into the synagogue, and these Pharisees, these leaders, they still don't believe. They're skeptical, cynical, and they just like, I don't know, I'm not sure. And they actually were mean to him, right? They kicked him out, and they, shamed him and kind of put him on blast for the community. And as they did this, they were proving to themselves, the scriptures today, that these guys were not the good guys, right? And the story of this gospel, the good news did not reach them. They were the ones who were against this. They saw with their own eyes people that were had their own eyes lifted and healed, and yet they did not believe. So as we're in John 10 today, we're going to read this together. So John 10, you can follow along. I'm going to read this, and then we will kind of go into our time. Truly, truly, I say to you, Jesus says, he who does not enter by the door into the fold of the sheep, but climbs up some other way, he is a thief and a robber. But he who enters by the door is a shepherd of the sheep. To him the doorkeeper opens, and the sheep hear his voice, and he calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he puts forth all his own, he goes ahead of them, and the sheep follow him because they know his voice. A stranger they simply will not follow, but will flee from him because they do not know the voice of strangers. This figure of speech Jesus spoke to them, but they did not understand what those things were, which he had been saying to them. So this is a very common idea. Shepherds, very common in those days. Shepherds, they knew their sheep. They would herd them. They would put them in pens, right? So sometimes this pen was in their house, but then there's a gate, right, that they let the sheep in just at night, okay, so that they could be safe from predators and that sort of thing. So there's a safety of walls, right? There's a safety of walls. But yet, Jesus says he is the door. He is the door that actually, in verse 7, so it says, Jesus said to them again, truly, truly, I say to you, I am the door of the sheep. So all who came before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep did not hear them. Again, he says, I am the door. If anyone enters through me, he will be saved and will go in and out and find pasture. This in and out is kind of like a doggy door, okay? So, they kind of, you open it and it goes through and it goes out. So whenever they need to go to the bathroom or go eat or whatever, it was open to them, that there was freedom to go to safety or to venture out. This idea of the door, Jesus being that door, is that he lets in, right, what is good, and he keeps out what is evil. This is the role of shepherd, right? That he watches over the sheep. He knows them. They would spend multiple, hours each day, and actually they would smell of the sheep. They would have this crook, right? It's kind of a rounded thing because it's rounded, so you don't want a regular stick. You just hit the sheep, right? You want a crook where you can actually guide the sheep. Sometimes you would have it, ring around their neck, kind of like a leash to kind of guide them a certain way. Now, on the other end, as a shepherd, there's this idea of, there's a pointed end, right? Sometimes he would stick it into the ground just to, let people know what's up, like a scarecrow of sorts. But most oftentimes, this was used to defend the flock when wolves would come. So when David, in the scriptures is spoken like, oh, this guy's a shepherd. No. Don't misunderstand. Shepherds are not just these sheepish kind of people, but these are people that are vicious and would terrorize enemies that would come against their flock. So on one end, there's a crook that guides the sheep, and on the other end, there's a spear-like thing that they would stab, right, and fight them off. When Jesus says he's the door, he says that, the sheep know me as the shepherd. I am the one who protects and contains, and releases the sheep to be free and to keep out what is evil. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I've came that they might have life and have it abundantly. We heard about this in John 9. The Pharisees and the leaders, they were mean to this guy who was newly saved. His eyes were open. And yet they didn't believe. They were still mean to him and still shamed him and pushed him out. And yet, this is Jesus specifically pointing to those leaders, saying, no, you are those bad leaders. You are those who are thieves and robbers that come to destroy. I have come in contrast that they may have life. He goes on in verse 11, I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. He who is a hired hand and not a shepherd, who is not the owner of the sheep, sees the wolf coming and leaves the sheep and flees. And the wolf snatches them and scatters them away. This is the same connotation of a thief, right? A wolf eats the sheep. He's speaking again to these Pharisees because he's referencing Ezekiel 34. Okay? And if you want to look there or just look at it later, but it's very telling of what Jesus is speaking about. In Ezekiel 34, verse 2 to 10, he says, I am against these shepherds. And the image that is painted in Ezekiel is that they're leaders who are preying upon the sheep. They have grown fat, and yet they do not care for the poor, the marginalized, the sick. They only feed themselves. And there's this picture that they are feeding upon the sheep themselves. In Dante Alighieri's Inferno, okay, some of you guys have read that, but there's a certain place, I'm not saying they're in hell, but there's a certain place, there's an imagery of a shepherd, right, that preys upon the sheep. The picture that Dante paints is that they're disfigured, that they have holes in their body, and that instead of the crook being right side up, it's upside down, because what they do instead of hurting the sheep is that they're poking the sheep and killing them and eating them. And there's a special place in hell for those who are called to care for God's people, for leaders to care for the sheep, but yet feed themselves. This is not kind language that Jesus is using, right, against the shepherds. But then there's hope, because as Jesus is referencing himself as the good shepherd, he's actually, if you look down in Ezekiel 34, in verse 11 through 16, he says, I myself, God says, I myself will now shepherd my people. Not these guys, but I myself. Because they have failed, I will fulfill this myself. And we're not trying to say perfect shepherds or leaders. We're saying there is one who is perfect. I will guide and I will shepherd my sheep. And in Ezekiel 34 at the end, 23 to 24 says, who will shepherd them? There's this idea of David, right? King David, and I will. When Jesus references, again, he says in verse 14, I am the good shepherd. I know my own, and my own know me. Even as the Father knows me, and I know the Father, and I lay down my life for the sheep. I have other sheep, which are not of this fold. I must bring them also, and they will hear my voice. And they will become one flock with one shepherd. This sense that Jesus is, this confrontation in some sense, right? That Jesus is speaking to the people now. He's in the synagogue, speaking to Jews, Gentiles, leaders. Some people are hearing this and thinking, oh my gosh, he's talking down to us. There's others who are saying, I'm drawn to what he's saying. I like this. This is good news. If you're hearing that and you're saying this is good news, Jesus actually is saying that, no, you're responding to my words. If you're being pushed away and it's hard for you to hear and your heart is calloused and maybe self-protective, maybe a little bit, you're shying away because maybe those who are in power, the Pharisees, maybe they're considering that if he's saying he's the good shepherd, he's going to take away our people. He's going to take away our influence. That's what the Pharisees are thinking. But beyond just losing that influence, terms that Jesus is mentioning, right? He's saying, I am the door. I am the good shepherd. Jews and God's people in that day would hear this and say, I am. God said that to Moses. You don't say I am. It's one of those, like if you read Harry Potter, you don't say the word Voldemort. Okay? You just don't, because it connotes danger or evil. Or, we just had Chinese New Year, I did at least, right? That you don't talk about death. You just don't. The same way that you wouldn't wear white to a funeral. Or you wouldn't wear black to a wedding. There's this sense that there's this huge taboo. And this is why it's taboo. For those of you guys who are Bible nerds, okay, like, let me enlighten, because I need to feel smart sometimes, okay? I am is actually a derivative of Yahweh. Yahweh is that term that they said about Jehovah God, that you cannot utter his name. So when he's speaking, I am, it's already threatening to them, and it's already angering them. Then when he says that, no, I am that good shepherd. I am the door. I am the bread of life. You can feel this sense that, yeah, he's building to something. He's revealing more and more of who he is. And more, those who are against him, they're digging in their heels. They don't want this to be the case. Sometimes they're just being protective. Maybe they think they are shepherds themselves. But as Jesus tells them that I am the good shepherd, this is one of those times where they just cannot have it. Verse 17, for this reason the Father loves me, because I lay down my life so that I may take it again. No one has taken it away from me, but I lay it down on my own accord. I have authority to lay it down, and I have authority to take it up again. This commandment I received from my Father. In verse 19, a division occurred again among the Jews because of these words. Many of them were saying, he has a demon and is insane. Why do you listen to him? Others were saying, these are not the same as one demon-possessed. A demon cannot open the eyes of the blind, can he? We pose that question today. Can you trust in him? Can a demon-possessed man that maybe is against you be out for your good, laying down his life for you? Can that be trusted? Is he really a good shepherd? Is he really the only door and the only way to God? This excluding and including, right? He's inviting non-believers to hear. He's inviting those in the crowd. He entrusted those who are part of his fold to believe again. We don't believe here that we are perfect people, but we believe that we follow a perfect Savior. In this way, we are exclusive, right? We don't let people who think they're perfect into the fold. Because if you're perfect, you have no need for Jesus. This place, this church, is only for those who are sinners. But not just sinners in general. It's for sinners who need a Savior and who would follow him, who know that they need help. They honor that. They say, I want to follow Jesus. There are certain things that are shared among those who are close, and there are things that are excluded because they are not. My wife and I, we share certain things, but there are times where I have to share her with other people. And that's true because I have kids. I have to share my attention of her with my kids. And as much as I hate that, okay, that's the truth. And there are certain things that we share that is obviously unshareable with any of you. And that should be right, and that should be the case. There's an exclusiveness that Jesus says, here's the line. Anybody is welcome. But in exchange is that you have to give me your sin, and I'm going to give you my life. You cannot enter feeling or sensing that you're perfect, that you have to be imperfect, and to give that to me. The door, like Ezekiel or Moses, to the promised land, you should hear that as they enter the promised land. There's one way: to trust and to obey. Find him and allow him to lead us to that place of land of milk and honey, where it's not just life, but life abundant. That's what John 10 is speaking about. He's saying, hey, you guys all have life. That's true. You have your own lives. The resurrection, Jews and people, they understood that. They knew that there was a life after death. They believed that. But the life that you have now, sure, Jesus is not saying you have no life. But he's asking you, do you know that there is a life abundant? Life abundant means life overflowing, where you're not consumed by want or desire, but you're free to, what? Give selflessly, to serve. Not out of obligation, but out of joy and fun and love. A life abundant is not just, existing or paycheck to paycheck or just being okay. He's saying, I want your life to be overflowing, so much so, like mine, that I can give freely, even to the point of laying down my life. There are times where in high school or in college where I just got by. I got a passing grade, C, okay? C minus maybe, okay? And I passed. I got the credit, okay? I barely passed. And no one asks about that anymore because I'm much older, right? Like, oh, which grade did you get? Like, I don't know, right? There are times where paychecks, right, like I said, are just paycheck to paycheck. We have just enough to pay our rent. I would love, right? I would love to be able to be rich. So, not so I can just have anything I want, but I could have that to actually give to others. We have friends who are missionaries and who are in need, that are much greater need than us. There's a sense that if I had more, I would want to give to them. This is what it means to have a life, not a life that revolves around us or our need or our problem. Because the more we stare at our problem, we just think that's going to be our problem, and it becomes bigger and bigger. But when Jesus asks us to turn our eyes to him, he's saying, this is what it means to have a life abundant. To be shepherded by me. To be shepherded by me, who already has the life abundant. He is the God that owns the cattle of 1,000 hills. He is the God that has much more than we ever can dream of. He is the one that he says, if you trust in me, actually I'm the giver of that abundance. If you're wanting to be abundant on your own, go ahead, he says. You can have that life. And instead of saying you have no life, and he's not condemning, but he's saying, look, if you want a different life, a better life, this is what it means to have that better life. He says it in such a way to confront. He's gentle in confronting those who are hard against him. He says that it's not life that is all about right and wrong. There's many rules that they followed, right? But yet, it's not about evil and good. He's saying, is your heart oriented towards me? or is it oriented towards yourself? It's okay to behave correctly. We're not out for behavioral correction here. There's a way that behavior, and you can act a certain way, and that will be good enough. You can fake it for most people. Everyone will look at you fine, that sort of thing, right? But as we read the scriptures, we know that the Pharisees, their intentions, their hearts were not turned towards God. When Jesus says, I am a sheep, it's part of this abundance, and he looks for other sheep. This is pretty cool, right? I think this is pretty neat that he looks for other sheep. He just doesn't say, these are my sheep. There are other sheep that I know that are lost, and I need to go find them. This is a beautiful picture of a good shepherd, because obviously for me, I would really love for Jesus to just stay with me, okay? And part of me is upset. He's like, there's other sheep. I'm like, what? There's other sheep? I thought I'm your sheep. He says, no, there's others. There's others yet that are there. And to me, to us, who are believers, this is part of what abundance is. He's saying, no, I have more to give. I have more sheep that are part of my fold, that are not here. And this really kind of hurt the Israelites, because they said, I thought we're God's people. And as they saw Gentiles and the sick and the sinners and the tired and the poor, they started to come and follow Jesus. It hurt them because they said, are they really part of the fold? Like, they're thinking, they're going to take away our thunder. They're going to take away our influence. We're going to have to share God with them. What they didn't realize is that this good shepherd has much more resources than they could ever give, or they could ever exhaust. That even the poor, even the needy, as he fed the 5,000, said, look, I have enough even for them. And more than enough, but abundant. As today we kind of trust in different things. We talk about that trust. It's easy to trust sometimes in our health, or our wealth, or our safety, or our comfort. And some of us, maybe we've never heard it so clearly in a church setting. But if that is your main concern, about your health, or your wealth, or your safety, or your comfort, I'm sorry to say, guys, but Jesus says and confronts that, says, no. If I'm going to go look for my other sheep, those who are part of my fold, I'm going to give you safety and comfort. But I'm also going to ask you to come with me to also find those other sheep. I know sometimes we believe in Jesus. Sometimes we believe in air. But the key word today is trust. Trust and faith. Are we able to, the term faith is, does it bear weight? And as I think about that, there's this, I think about, the picture that comes to mind is this as I swim, right? Sometimes I swim in a pool, and there's this, those inflatables. Is it able to hold my weight? Because I know I'm not young or skinny anymore, okay? Will this hold my weight? Because one, it's going to be pretty embarrassing if it doesn't, okay? But is this able to hold my weight? Is this something that we just is this faith in Jesus or trust in him? Is this simply just a dawdle that we kind of are not sure about? Or is this a full-on trust and obeying of him, where we step fully out onto that water that Jesus calls us out to? Sheep know his voice. I think the more time we spend, the more time we recognize that he's not a stranger, that he can be trusted. There's trust that is, maybe you've been hurt by that. Relationally, I understand that. I've gone through my own trust issues. I still have my own trust issues. If you're hearing this, you're wondering, can I trust? Not just trust in Jesus, but can I trust his words that he's saying, that he will take care of you. I can tell you yes. But if you're hearing his voice today, then it's time to respond. We are reminded again, that our wealth and our health does not last. It cannot protect us from what is to be, and that we are all in God's hands. Kobe Bryant, right, has passed away. And I think it's not so much that I was bothered, but it wasn't that so much that I knew the guy, it wasn't like that. It was reminded that, okay, the first thought was that actually Michael Jordan is still playing basketball at his age. And it's amazing to me to think all his wealth and all his health and all of that happened. It just calls into question more again. I'm shocked. Why am I shocked that he passed? I think it's because even all that wealth, all that health, all the stuff that he had couldn't protect him from what was to be. Jesus goes after his sheep. And as we kind of get into the fourth quarter, 2-minute warning right now. When Jesus talks to the Pharisees and his people, does it so lovingly. He works in ways that we would not think would be. We think Jesus is going to work one way, and then he changes his mind, or he works in a different way. They thought they were going to have a king to overthrow Rome. Instead, he becomes a shepherd and the sheep to actually die on that cross. Sheep were the ones to be sacrificed. It was not the shepherd who was to go to the cross, to be that sacrificial lamb for his people. And when that happened, there are whole worlds where the disciples who were following him, they didn't want to hear that. When you're on a high, right, you want to ride that way. But when Jesus says, I'm going to lay down my life, they're like, what? You can't lay down your life. What are you talking about? You did all these miracles. You raised people from the dead and all this stuff. How can you die? Well, it's not the Pharisees or the sinners or all these people that killed Jesus. Yes, they did. But it's Jesus who lays down his life, willingly, sacrificially, for his people. When he predicts his death and speaks about laying down his life, it's not by accident or circumstance. But he sees his people that he is saving and shepherding. He says, I have to do this in order to save them. Now, I'm going to end with this. I have the question, Jesus, why are you wasting your time talking to these Pharisees? And as I was thinking about this, and I was praying about this passage, I can hear God's voice in me as I ask that question. Jesus, why are you wasting your time? Why did you waste time with these people? I can hear God's voice speaking into my ear, just ever so gently, saying, bro, because that was you. Because that was you. It was hard for you to believe. You didn't want to believe. You were against me. And yet, I came for you. In this way, he melts my heart. Because the lost, yes, are the sinners. And as you think about this, maybe you want to close your eyes. You don't have to. Don't fall asleep, As you think about who are those who are lost. Do you yourself come to mind? Or do you think about others? We are primarily sheep, especially leaders and pastors in here. We are primarily sheep. And then we lead only out of an overflow and abundance of knowing that we are saved. And we, as believers in the same way, we see ourselves primarily as sheep. And and only serve out of an abundance of knowing and trusting and believing that. And if you have your eyes closed, I want you to think about this as we are going to celebrate communion today. If you're thinking about those who are lost, immediately I think of my friends who are full of curse words, ugly, I don't know, I'm so sinful, right? Sorry. Those who I don't think deserve it, or I want to. For parents in here, I want you to consider that that person, that son, that daughter in your home, that may be the lost person that you need to minister to. For young persons in here, maybe you have parents or grandparents. As you think about that, does your heart yearn for those who are lost, even in your own household? And as we look at this passage, as we meditate on this passage, it's not just the sinners and good news for them. It's the Pharisees as well. That Jesus lovingly goes to them and says, I want you to be my sheep. You are my sheep. That's why I came to you first. That's why I'm here in the synagogue talking to you. And that's why I'm still here, and that's why I'm going to have to die in order for your eyes to be open. And as we do that, let's pray as we hear and respond to what God has spoken to us. Father God, you never waste your time. We hear your voice today. Our hearts melt. Our ears and our eyes are opened. Help us to remember again that we are just sheep. Just sheep. Wanting, desiring for a shepherd to lead, guide us, and save us. And that you are much more than a shepherd, but you became the sheep that sacrificed his life for us, rising again. Lord, we can trust you. We can trust you. We're not just trusting in you, but we are trusting your hand today. You're not dead, but you're alive. And you have made us alive. Lord, if you're calling us to walk with you, if it's easy places or difficult places, help us not to just love with our minds and what we can understand. Help us to wrap our hearts around you and to follow you.